DVDs are run with quartz. Computers are run with quartz. And they had these massive hunks of quartz, like at Saqqara, there's Karnak. There's one that's like 6 feet across by 6 feet wide by like 5 feet high. One piece of quartz, and if you go up to it, you can pull off little bits of quartz crystals. Well, these are all over the place, and there used to be expanses of hundreds of square feet of floor in these huge courtyards at Saqqara with a 10-inch quartz crystal floor, laser-cut crystals, huge altars at Abu Ghurab, and interesting that mimics the name of the jail, so I'm sure that the powers that be know about this stuff and want to associate it with torture instead of with high-level technology. So there's a lot of evidence that's depicted in the series that basically, I mean, you can't deny what you can see and touch with your own hands is one of the things that Hakim says in the series.
There are quite a few glyphs that seem to be referred to by just about everybody. They've kind of overshadowed the rest of the glyphs, but they appear to be flying machines, exotic devices, and some kind of possibly time travel, teleportation machines. Have you been able to, is that a significant aspect of all of the findings, or is it just a small part of it?
Oh, what's significant about it is that it was hidden, and it's only in the last, 10, 15 years that a piece of stone fell off a lintel way above your head in the Abd'el temple. And the other thing is that the King's List has erased the names of the people who had the highest level of consciousness, in my opinion, Akhenaten and Nefertiti, King Tut, and Hatshepsut. And they were all touching in to the Golden Age. So we have seen a deterioration in Egypt as well. And part of that deterioration was covering up the evidence of the secrets of the, flying machines and teleportation devices and that sort of thing. And so even within ancient Egypt, there has been a deterioration between the Golden Age and the Iron Age. And so this is really interesting because what traditional Egyptologists want us to look at is just the last little bit, Ramses, and that's just a very, very short part of the whole of Egyptian history.
One of the interesting possibilities that's brought up in the DVD is the possibility, which I had never actually considered, that the pyramids are linked to all the other sacred sites, and when operational, were designed to raise the frequency of the entire planet to extend the level of consciousness as the higher age, or golden age, moved into the descending ages. You seem to be the first person who's actually brought that idea into our awareness.
Well, and I'm not the only one who thinks it. Some of the scientists that are in the Pyramid Code will elaborate on that somewhat. And it was a good idea. So it's like we can recall past lives now, but I think that in those times we look to future lives. And when you think about it, if we knew it was going to deteriorate so horribly where, we'd be pitted against each other and ruining the planet, which would just be absolutely horrible to think about for the Egyptians because their whole thing was about being in balance with nature, and we're certainly not doing that.
No.
And so, yes, this worldwide grid would have been able to sustain, like it worked on the ley lines or the dragon lines, as they call them in China. And if you look at Heaven's Mirror, Graham Hancock's book, he divides the Earth up like an orange, the sections of an orange, and every 72 degrees, if you ignore up and down, you'll find a sacred site like Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Easter Island, it goes on, where these major sites, Teotihuacan, Mexico, Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, all of these sacred sites actually surround the globe. And it was about keeping the grid charged. And now that things are disconnected, some sites have been destroyed, the casing stones have come off the pyramids so they don't function as well as they used to, and the energy is as dense as it's getting, then it doesn't function in the same way. But if you stand inside the pyramid or near the pyramid, the energy is palpable. And so if that was turned on and working on a global scale, you would have felt a great deal of buoyancy, psychological and conscious buoyancy that would have gone with it.
Well, it certainly would be a different world than we see out there today.
Oh, yes.
And one of the other things that I found interesting was that not only did they use renewable harmonious energy, which was free, which is still available today, you tie it into Tesla's work, and the fact that J.P. Morgan basically, because Tesla wanted to make free energy available to the population, the masses that are on the planet, J.P. Morgan simply shut him down because he couldn't make a profit on it. So that's why we're stuck with electricity.
Yes, and it doesn't work that well, and we may lose the grid as well. But they certainly made a good lot of money off all of us over the last decades and decades. So in 1910, all the system was there to have wireless technology and communication devices and free power. And they shut them down, like you said, and drove Tesla into obscurity. But if you look at the Tesla Tower that was constructed through the funding of J.P. Morgan, actually, in the beginning, on Long Island, you'll see that it's on top of a limestone aquifer, and it's got descending passageways that are about 45 degrees, which is very similar to the construction of the Great Pyramid. And most people who understand the workings of the Tesla Tower don't realize that it's actually constructed very similar to the Great Pyramid. But the tower isn't a pyramid, but it is a structure above ground, but below ground it's almost the same.
And similarly, we've had the ability for at least 60 years or longer, probably longer, but at least 60 years to have transportation that does not use oil. And of course, I think our listeners all are pretty much aware that there's a shadowy global elite that is kind of pulling the noose and controlling all of this for their own selfish benefit.
Well, that's right, and they don't seem to care what they ruin along the way. Like the disaster in the Gulf right now, 3 months old with millions of gallons of oil going in every day is just, and they're, kind of not really doing so much to clean it up. They're not allowing external help to come in. They've got these tankers that are ready to scoop the oil up, but they won't let them start. They've made us dependent on roads and cars where they could have had, high-speed rail systems instead that would have been cheaper, which affects transportation of every item, every goods and services, people going on airplanes. They've done a really good job of making themselves rich. And, all the lies that we've been told about it being so hard to get and there being so little of it and stuff when it's gushing and gushing and gushing. What do you mean hard to get? So it really has been about suffering for many and profit for few. And that would never happen in a matriarchal culture. Right.
And then of course, you could point to a lot of other things. I mean, they make profits on all sides of the wars, and they simply trigger them when they want to accomplish some particular goal, like taking over a region or toppling a good leader that's not corrupt. This has been a pattern since the beginning of time. But it goes back so far, and unfortunately, it seems like they've had the ability to perpetuate themselves through some kind of direct lineages that pass this power along and continually tighten the noose on humanity until we are the slave species working for them.
Well, and I wouldn't say since the beginning of time. I'd say since the beginning of the patriarchy.
Right, which would be 3103 BC.
3113. And it has passed through, and it's been them and their buddies and them and their family members and all of that. And they see us as, you're right, as the slaves, as the sheeple, as the people who are expendable, and who cares if you ruin the planet a little bit. So it's very short-sighted, because one of the mandates of matriarchal societies is to leave more to the children, to respect the wisdom of the elders, but to make sure that we are leaving something that's sustainable, and understanding that children, are the evolution, and move beyond us. And in the patriarchal culture, if you don't get caught, it's not wrong, and use it all up, me, it's over.
Yes. Well, it does seem to be that there's no conscience whatsoever, and there's an extreme contempt for the very people that they're built off our backs, that are feeding their system. They have such contempt for us that doing things like 911 and various terror events is just another tool for them to manipulate a little bit more and get a little bit more control over us.
Right, and when people say, don't let them, what are you going to do?
Right.
Paying your taxes? I mean, of course,
Right.
if we had electric cars and things made sense, we'd all buy them. But they had it, and they tested it, and then they took it off the market.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like they really have imprisoned us and made us pay for our own imprisonment. You know, so you know you have to register to pay money for a lot of different things with insurance and everything else, and utilities and taxes. And there is another way to set it up that's fair for everybody, that's good for the planet.
Yes, absolutely, and the whole monetary system, as far as I'm concerned, needs to collapse because earning interest on money has caused a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, which involves all governments, bank bailouts, and it's just a transfer of wealth from us to them, and that we keep paying and paying. I can't believe that the people are just not getting this, but we're so well indoctrinated and hypnotized by, you know, the various things that fascinate us that are dangled in front of us that we have become complacent. You know, it's really kind of horrifying.
But it's complacent by design. Aspartame mixed with fluoride and pharmaceuticals that aren't ever tested with each other and given in combination, and pollution and chemtrails and TV and everything else in the school system. You know, I call it hoop jump biscuit. They force us to learn something, and then they give us a test. We give it back, whether it's correct or incorrect. You know, or it doesn't teach us to think. It doesn't teach us deep knowing. And so over, you know, millennia of doing this, it has taken its toll. And I think that the powers that be are incredibly patient, and there's a franticness going on. I think, you know, little children are upset with, you know, finding oil-soaked dead birds, and, you know, what they call cleanup is going and picking up those birds before the cameras come, even though they've got it illegal to take pictures. But anyway, you know, like, there's lots of reasons to be upset, distracted, frantic, and ungrounded, and that's the culmination, and then they keep pouring on fear. You know, there's all kinds of things going on now that's only going to make it worse. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I think people are beginning to wake up and see that if something major is going on in the world, even a weather. I've had guests on my show that talk about HAARP, which was kind of partially Tesla's work, and how they can manipulate the weather. And the other countries and our country are back and forth heating up the ionosphere and causing huge vacuums and then collapses, which cause tidal waves and earthquakes. So we don't really know even if nature's natural functioning is a cause of the planet shifting around, or if it's some kind of electronic device that's manipulating the weather. They can actually have control of it now.
Oh, they have definitely got control of it. Now, the other thing about the oil digging is they had a permit for 2 miles deep. They went 6 miles deep. Well, is this related to earthquakes and shaking up the mantle? Do we know the answer to that? And they said that they can stop storms from blowing the oil into the States and keep it far away, but then it makes it cold in Canada. And it's been ridiculously and unseasonably cold in all of Canada, and increasingly so. They call it global warming, but we're all freezing here. You know, big hailstones the other day here in the Calgary region, and, you know, they really are able to manipulate the weather. But, I mean, it's like a domino effect. Like if you manipulate here, it's dangerous to play God.
Yes. Yes. Well, your research on the pyramids and these ancient sites would indicate that we're reaching the end or the turning point of this extremely horrific dark iron age that we're in, and that it's going to probably get worse. And the good news is that it's not going to last very long. It's a shorter period before things start to turn around at, I guess, the solstice, the winter solstice.
Well, we can only hope, but the thing is like I said earlier when we were talking about it being dark before Christmas, you know, we still have some dark times to go through, but the thing that worries me is that when people are, you know, keep expecting it to be dark, they'll see it dark, you know what I'm saying? And there's so many things that they've already done to disadvantage people. If you draw straight lines, I mean, like people who've already lost their homes in Louisiana, I mean, you know, and then you get another tidal wave or whatever. I mean, it's hopeless for a lot of people already who have lost their homes and lost their jobs when there aren't jobs being made and they